Have you always loved writing?
I have. I grew up with my nose in a book all the time, and I think around third grade I decided to write my first novel. So I attempted it then. And so I've always loved stories. I'll back up and say that. But writing was something that I sort of did in order to convey the stories in my head, right? So, yeah.
And were these like Ramona Cleary or like what kind of books were these?
I grew up on Nancy Drew.
Oh, nice.
That was my favorite. And then I moved to Stephen King. So that was an interesting transition. My parents thought as long as I was reading, I was doing something good for my brain. And so they just let me read whatever I wanted to. So Stephen King became my go-to when I was about 10 or 11.
Interesting. So you liked mysteries and solving things rather than a prom queen.
Yeah.
Get stood up or something.
I mean, I'm sure there was plenty of that too. I definitely read the Sweet Valley High series religiously in junior high or something. But yeah, Stephen King was kind of the go-to from about age 10 on. And then any sort of mystery I could get my hands on, I would have read that too.
What pushed you toward filmmaking?
That's a good question. Don't know. Let's see. So I grew up in Portland, and when I moved back there after college, I started working at a small commercial production company, and that was my first exposure really to any sort of filmed medium. And as I got to know a lot of the commercial directors, it turned out they were also all making short films and trying to make feature films on the side. And so that was my first kind of exposure to just the fact that people even made films, and that it was something that you could pursue as a career as well.
So you grew up in the Pacific Northwest and then you went to school at ASU?
I did, yeah.
Wow, so you were done with the rain or you just wanted to be around sunshine for a while?
Exactly, no, I grew up in the rain, 300 days of rain a year, and when it came time to go to college, I had a friend who went to ASU the year before I did, and so I thought, that seems pretty nice. Look at that. Look at all that sunshine.
Right. Clear sky. And,
yep.
And did you study writing there at ASU?
No, I was a psych major.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were planning on doing something with the psychology degree, or?
Well, I like to say that I think I was drawn to the psych degree because by the time I had to declare a major, I had so many psych classes that it just made sense to finish out that degree. But really, it was just a good sort of broad liberal arts education. I mean, I had to take all of the, the English and sociology and sort of, basic stuff that everyone has to take. But my electives were always psychology classes too. I always liked the abnormal psych classes and even the research classes that I had to take for psychology, where it was like data analysis. All of that stuff was fun for me. Yeah.
How often would the people around you discourage you from being a writer?
Oh. Growing up, I wasn't discouraged from being a writer. My parents both totally encouraged reading, and so writing as an extension of that, they encouraged that as well. I would say through college, everyone encouraged writing. It probably wasn't until I moved to LA and sort of started, dipping my toe into the screenwriting that I heard about how hard it would be and how challenging it was to launch a career and sustain a career in screenwriting. So I don't know, maybe it's just after you get sort of exposed to the realities of making money doing, an artistic sort of career that people get cynical. As a kid, they totally encouraged it, but as an adult, people are like, do something more stable,
So you went to school at ASU and then you went back to Oregon and worked within the film community there or production companies?
Yeah, I worked at a commercial production company in Portland. They were doing all sorts of commercials. What was the most fun for me, though, was helping out with the short films that the directors were doing on the side.
And then what prompted you to move to LA from Oregon?
Well, I'd worked in commercials for a little over a year, and I sort of felt like I'd had enough exposure to know that this was something that interested me. Just sort of the entertainment business in general kind of had a draw. And I felt like I knew enough, or I'd seen enough about how short films were made that I knew maybe I could do something in production. I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I thought I'll come to LA, figure it out when I get there. So that's what I did.
Did you notice any differences in the way the industry is approached, being in Oregon versus LA?
In Portland versus LA?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yes, oh sure.
The first thing I noticed, actually, when I worked at that commercial production company, we did have some business occasionally with different companies in LA. So I would end up having to call various vendors in LA and ask for things, order things, whatever. And the first thing that I noticed about the difference between Portland and LA is that people in LA have no patience for you on the phone. I would call and I would make small talk like, hey, how's it going? How are you today? Because that's what you do in Portland. And they'd be like, yeah, what do you need? So that was the big difference that I noticed while I was still in Portland. Sure. Let's see, after moving to LA, let me think, big differences. Yeah, I can't, it's so long ago, I'm not sure I remember any.
Sure, but that it's an interesting thing that where you were trying to just be genuine and then
yes,
and you saw that doesn't work, and maybe it's even almost like seen as like, what do they want,
Right.
So.
It was, I think people that I was talking to thought that I didn't know what I was doing, because they were like, listen, if you knew what you were doing really, you would know that we don't have time to make small talk. Just tell me what you need and I got to get off the phone, So.
Sure. Yeah. Sometimes I know kindness can be seen as a weakness here. I'd like to think that that's not, but there is occasion when I have seen that.